Well, again, hello everyone. Welcome to the Works Cited page because I Googled it, isn't a source. My name is Mariah. I am one of the Ally Centered tutors, and I am also one of LBC's adjunct professors. I teach mainly writing classes, and I love MLA. I'm a little bit of a nerd whenever it comes to MLA, and I'm very excited to be going over the Works Cited page. Don't worry, you don't have to similarly have excitement about the Works Cited page. You can just come with an open mind, ready to learn, and we will dive in. Before we get to the material, I wanted to say, first of all, we are going to be going through a whole bunch of very specific things. So we'll go over like, how do you set up a works cited entry for a book? How do you set up a works cited page for a website, etc.? So if you are working on a project where you have stuff and you're like, oh, I need to figure out how to cite this book. I need to figure out how to cite this web article that I found. Go ahead and pull it up now so that you can sort of work through it along with us. And even if you're not in the middle of something right this second, it might be helpful if you can pull up on your computer LBC's website and go to the library so that as we're looking at, for example, an ebook or a work in an anthology, you may not have that one like on your docket right this second, but it will be helpful for you to still walk through the steps because I found personally that I am so much more, my learning is much greater whenever I'm actually able to do the thing instead of just listening to somebody tell me about it. Plus, then you'll have notes for you to look back on later. Of course, this is, I hope, being recorded. Yes. I'm like, oh, where's the recording button? I hope it's being recorded. This is being recorded. And so we will send out the recording whenever it's complete. It'll go up on our YouTube page, etc. Additionally, there are some resources that I'm going to show you, websites that I like to visit whenever I have a question about MLA. And there's also a Word document that I will create during the course of this workshop that I will attach and send to you all as well. So you will walk away equipped with lots of things to be able to help you on the way. And this is an interactive workshop. So I'm going to be asking you guys questions. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Of course, I might say, you know what, let's put a pin in that. I'm going to hit that in just a little bit, but I'd rather have you ask than be like, oh, I don't want to ask the question. I don't want to interrupt the flow. This workshop is for you. You guys are here, and so we want to be able to answer the questions that you have. Now, with that being said, I want to start off our time with a little bit of a question. And there's not many of us, but there are a few of us, so I'd love to hear a couple of different thoughts. Why is having a works cited page important? Why even bother with MLA and all of that stuff? Geneva, hello, friend. Good to have you. I just asked a question. The question is, again, so why is it important for us to use a works cited page to have MLA formatting? What are your thoughts? There is not necessarily a wrong answer. Just what are your thoughts? Rosanna?
Mine would be to encourage further research, further education.
Great.
So if I'm
Absolutely.
reading something that I'm really like trying to get something out of it, I'm not quite getting it. Sometimes if you go back in and you look through it again in a full context, you kind of understand it more.
Great. Yeah, having that list of resources at the end of whatever you're looking at, whether it's a web article or um, if it's a like a scholarly peer-reviewed journal article, or even some books have like that list of sources that they've looked through. You can use that to get a fuller picture of whatever the material is. Excellent. Thanks, Rosanna. Christopher.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't see nothing right now. My internet just went all
Oh no.
messed up. Anyway, I think part of it is, at least my understanding, is that so that when we turn in papers, most of them are the same, at least in general, the same.
Yes,
at
excellent.
least in format.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yeah, so using either MLA or APA creates a standard way for all of everybody to across the spectrum to have the same format. It does actually, as a professor, it makes it a lot easier because we sort of know what we're looking for, everything's standard. And that also makes you look professional, right? Whenever everything's standardized and everything has the correct format, it looks nice. Excellent. Great job, Christopher. Anyone else? Why do we use a formatting style slash why do we have a works cited? Camille.
So you can figure out if it's plagiarism or not.
Oh, good. Yeah.
hmm
Um,
And it gives you an idea, like everybody else says, for the teacher to be able to say, well, you got it from this place and that place. So now I can go and look and check to clarify that this information was cited right, or
yeah,
if it was copied word for word.
excellent. Um, anytime we're using a citation style, again, no matter which one it is, we are adhering to good academic integrity principles. And especially as followers of Christ, we want to make sure that we're using and employing academic integrity. Um, because if we don't, so if we just have a whole bunch of stuff, even if we use quotation marks to say, okay, well, this person, this isn't these aren't my words, like Rosanna said at the beginning, if we don't have that list of sources, you may know that what's in there isn't from you, but you're not going to know where to go to look it up. And so you're not actually giving credit to the people who wrote it. You're just sort of saying, okay, well, yeah, technically this isn't mine, but to whom does it belong? I don't know. And so having a standardized system of both the in-text citations and then that linked works cited page allows us to have excellent academic integrity. Great. Any other thoughts? There's one more major thing that I'm thinking of, and if you don't read my mind and get there, that's okay. I'll just share it. But anybody else have any other thoughts? Why bother with the works cited? The other thing that I'm thinking about is that it allows us to enter into the scholarly field and really to sort of borrow the credibility of other authors. Whenever we're writing sometimes or talk or speaking, there are some things that we already have credibility about, right? So maybe you have been married for a long time, and so you feel like you have credibility to speak about marriage. Or maybe, like myself, you're a rock climber. And so whenever you're talking about rock climbing or writing about rock climbing, you can just write about it and you don't need to cite somebody. However, sometimes you want to write about something that maybe you're not an expert in, but you still want to write about it. And so drawing upon other sources lends our writing credibility. But you're not going to be able to prove that to your audience unless you have those in-text citations and that corresponding works cited page so that they can see, this person is a scholar and they did the hard work of pulling together all of these outside sources to build up the credibility of their writing. And so altogether, having that works cited page really is important. And so, like I said, today we are going to take a look at how to set that up and how to do some of those individual sources. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to show you how to first set up the works cited page. So I am going to start with a little bit of a baby review on how to set up the page with MLA formatting. It's going to be short and quick. I know that we're going to be doing another workshop in a couple of months going over in more detail all of the formatting, but for right now, I just wanted to do a little brief review. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen and it looks like a blank Word document. Fantastic. So very first thing I always do whenever I'm setting up my Word documents is I set up the heading on the left-hand side. So I'm going to put student name, and then I'm going to put professor's name. And then you're going to put the class code. Usually they like it in a specific format. Typically, it's the letters and numbers. You can use spaces or hyphens or underscores or whatever the case may be. but you can put that in right there. And then the date the assignment is due. So if we were doing it for this week, most assignments are due on Saturday. So do I know what Saturday is? No, it's the 13th. So 13 June 2026. And that's the MLA standard way to write it. Day, month, and then the year. In the center, and I'm using the shortcut to go to the center, you can also use just in the home menu, you can hit the center alignment button right here. I'm going to say this is the title of my paper. Woohoo, look at that. And then just so that, again, we can sort of see what's going on, I'm going to hit the tab button and type a sample paragraph. This is my sample paragraph. My samples are never interesting because I cannot come up with content. Okay, great. And so you can see that 1/2 inch indent right there. Looks great. Before I do anything else, I want to make sure that I add my header on the top right-hand side. I like to do this by going up here into the menus and go to the insert menu. For Microsoft Word desktop version, I'm going to go to page number right here, hover over top of the page, and then I'm going to select plain number 3. If you're using something else, whether it's Microsoft Word Online or Google Docs, wherever you're looking, you want it on the right-hand side. You want to make sure you're inserting that page number, not just typing number 1. Otherwise, the number 1 will appear on every single page. So make sure we're inserting that page number, and then we're going to type your last name here, add a space. Most professors prefer that you have the same font and size for the entire document. So I'm going to make this Times New Roman. Go back to home, Times New Roman. I do want it 12-point font, so that looks great. Now I'm going to make sure that everything in here is the same font. So I'm going to make this Times New Roman. And I'm going into the page layout, line and paragraph spacing, line spacing options. And I want to make sure that these are all set up the same. So underneath spacing, before and after spacing should be set to 0. For whatever reason, Microsoft Word likes to have this not set up correctly. So I like to set these up and then make it a default. So you can see this button here set as default. So 0 points, 0 points. I'm going to check this box, don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. And then we want to have double spaced for the line spacing. And I'm going to hit OK. Any questions on the basic setup for our paper? Pamela, welcome to the workshop. All right.
Now,
so
you answered all of them last time.
Woohoo! So that's just the setup for our paper. Again, that's just a brief little overview of the MLA formatting. What we want to do now is we want to set up an actual Works Cited page. Now, I already have this sort of pre-set up right here, but I'm going to show you how I got there. So I'm going to hit the backspace button until we're back up at the top. Whenever we're doing this, sometimes people will hit enter until your Works Cited page is on a new page. Anybody familiar with that? Now, the problem with doing this, there are a couple of problems. It's not necessarily that it's just completely wrong. It's just that it creates issues sometimes. If you hit enter, 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 and you got your Works Cited page set up, but then you start typing, right? And then all of a sudden, your Works Cited is no longer at the top of your page, right? And then you just have to go back and fix it later. Not a big deal. The other problem, though, is that sometimes Microsoft Word and Canvas don't play nice. And so whenever you upload your document to Canvas, because you've hit enter, 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 for whatever reason, Canvas knows, and it'll distort your page and put Works Cited somewhere else. Another page, halfway down the page, partway through the first page, whatever the case may be. And so instead of hitting enter, 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 what I recommend is you go back to that insert menu and you just hit page break, and then it'll launch onto a new page. We just blew Camille's mind. We are excited for this. Now, what's nice is that no matter how much we type over here, As long as it doesn't break a new page, that's not moving. See how it's not moving at all? But once I go onto that new page, it automatically launched onto the next page for us. Yep. I know, look, little tips and tricks, right? That make our
Now I
lives
don't
so
have to
much better.
scream down the hall and tell my son every 10 seconds to come help me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're like, that was worth the price of admission right there. So I do recommend that. And then again, it will also keep Canvas from distorting your formatting whenever you upload your paper to Canvas, which is always annoying because you're like, I did it. It was on a new page on my computer. So
That's what I was
that's
just getting
nice.
ready to say. That
Mm-hmm.
really clarified some things
Mm-hmm.
because I'm sure, well, we
I
talking
do.
not.
I know.
It is so true. It is so true.
Yep.
So that
Yep.
was very helpful.
And same thing for whenever you're using the centralized option. And I know centralized isn't a word. It's okay. I use it. Sometimes we are tempted to hit perhaps tab, 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 tab. Maybe not. Maybe hit space, space, space. That's pretty close, right? That's close to the middle. Again, for whatever reason, Canvas knows. Canvas knows, and it'll distort that formatting. And sometimes you can even look at it and you're like, I don't think that's quite, is that centered? Maybe I need to be, maybe one more, I don't know. And instead of doing that, again, I would just, oops, don't know what happened there. I would just go to the home menu and hit that center align button, or you can use a shortcut. I love using shortcuts. So if you're using something other than a Mac, it's Control and then the letter E to get to the middle. If you're using a Mac, it's the Command button with the letter E for echo. Again, if you're using anything else, Control and then E for it would be, so center, you're using the E of center because Control C is copy. So that's that. Any questions on getting to the works cited page?
You said Mac is Control E or Command E.
Command.
Thank you.
Command E. Yep. You use a Mac, Neil. Perfect. Then I will, whenever we're talking through, make sure that I do use both Mac and Windows commands whenever I'm walking through. It's going to be essentially the same. It's just that for the Mac, instead of hitting Control, you're going to use the Command button. Otherwise, all of the shortcuts should be essentially the same. I use a Mac for my personal computer, so I get to speak the language of both worlds. Everybody should join the Mac community, though, because Macs are great. Anyway, so we have our works cited page. And anytime we're setting up our works cited, we want to make sure that we are setting it up as a works cited page, not just a reference page. And what do I mean by that? In high school, some of the high schools that I've worked with are basically like, hey, whenever you're starting your research, any website that you visit, whenever you're doing your research, put that on your references page. You use it to help build your knowledge. Even if you didn't actually mention it in your document, just throw it on your references page. Keep track of all the sites you visited. That's not a works cited page. A works cited page is, in fact, just that, works that you have cited in your document. So anything that you type up here, so James Lindsay says, whatever he says. James Lindsay has to be mentioned on my works cited page because I've cited Lindsay in my document. If I visit Britannica and I use that to help me get ideas for my research, but I don't actually cite any information from Britannica, I'm not going to put Britannica on my works cited page. I'm only citing things that I explicitly mention in my document on my works cited page. Now, the reverse is true as well. Anything that is listed on my works cited page, I have to make sure that I include in my paper. Because sometimes you will, especially for like LAN 101 and LAN 100, and in fact, even FAS 100, you'll be required to collect sources and perhaps create an annotated bibliography. Anybody have to do that perhaps even this week, or a list of works cited because there's like, oh my gosh, I'm all over that. So you have to collect sources before you actually write your paper. But you may decide later on that that source, one of those sources that you found, doesn't actually fit what you're writing about. If you're not going to cite it in your paper, you have to remove it from your works cited page. Because otherwise, what you're telling your professor is kind of one of two things. Either you're inflating your works cited page by making it look like you use sources that you didn't, or you did use the source and you just didn't make it clear in the document that you used it, which would be plagiarism. Christopher, what's your question?
So that's what I need. That right there, that annotated bibliography that we're doing this week.
Yeah,
That's what we're gonna be meeting on. So
perfect. I love it.
thanks for
Just so
touching
you
on
guys,
it.
absolutely. Just so that you're aware, I do have a previous workshop on. I did it on the outline and the annotated bibliography as a paired assignment. So I will be happy to send that workshop out in the email as well. Let me make that note, just so that you guys have it as a source. Christopher, we are still absolutely going to be meeting on Wednesday, so don't feel like I'm trying to kick you out of our meeting. I'm so excited to be meeting with you, but I want to make that note. Workshop, Pamela.
The page that you are showing us now on screen, is there
Yes.
a way we can get a copy of
Oh,
that?
absolutely. Yep. Everything that I show you guys today, I will be sending to you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anybody have any questions on the philosophy of the works cited page? Okay. Like I said, we are going to be looking at some specific sources. Before I go to the library page and start sort of going back and forth, I do just want to mention that your works cited page, your entries should be organized alphabetically by whatever is leftmost on your page. So usually that's going to be organized by the author's last name. We'll get to some exceptions in a moment. But essentially, again, you're organizing by whatever's leftmost. So it's going to be the author's last name, A to Z. If anything has numbers, numbers go ahead of that. Important, MLA says to disregard articles whenever you're alphabetizing. That means that if you're going to be organizing by a title, so if there's no named author and you're organizing by a title, and the word the is in front, like the Holy Bible, we're not mentioning God as the author, then you're going to organize by H, the Holy Bible, instead of the T of the. I will remind you of this later, but I just wanted to get that rule out into the open before we dive in. So what I'm going to do first is I am going to take us to the LBC library page, and we're going to find some stuff to cite. Let me know whenever you can see my screen. You should be looking at LBC's library page. Fantastic. Just a little note, this is free. Whenever we're looking for articles, I would not use the library's big, beautiful search bar. It only looks in certain databases, and it doesn't ever seem to look in the databases that I find helpful. And so whenever we're looking for scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, I always go down to either the research guides or just the databases. So I'm going to click on research guides. And some of you are probably using in either LEN 100 or LEN 101. So I will go ahead and just take you briefly to the Literature and Language LEN 101 Research Guide so you can see what that looks like. So I like English Composition LEN 101. Now, even if you're just in LEN 100, this is still, I think, the better setup research guide. I'm going to click on that and then go to Databases and Tutorials. Again, this workshop isn't on how to find sources, but just wanted to take you to this page. These three databases are not scholarly journal articles, but they're still good sources. Academic Search Premier is, as it says, multidisciplinary. So it is a good starting place to look for a lot of different topics. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Academic Search Premier. And we're just looking for an example journal. We're not looking for something specific necessarily. Does anybody have a topic that they want to throw out that is sort of more general, not necessarily very niche, that perhaps we can use as a sample? Anybody want to share? Nope. Okay. We'll use abortion. Perfect. Go ahead.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Are you sure? Okay. So I'll use abortion. Now, whenever we're doing a search and we're looking for scholarly journal articles, we want to make sure that we do, in fact, check the box peer reviewed. I also like to select full text because otherwise they're going to give me results that are requesting it from other libraries, which I don't need. I don't need that hassle in my life. And sometimes you're going to have an age range. So past 5 years, sometimes your professor will request that. I need to move Zoom out of my way so I can click the search button, maybe. My mouse pad's not going to work. Here we go. Lord have mercy. Here we go. So at this point, I don't need to find anything particular. I am going to use both of these first two as examples because I can show you single author versus multiple authors. So I'll click on both of these. Let's use this one first. Now, here's my general rule of thumb whenever it comes to citations. Most professors don't care if you're using some sort of citation generating machine as long as you're checking your work to make sure that it's done correctly. For me, it is faster for me to type out the entry for everything except scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, because for scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, there's a lot of information. And if the library page provides it, then it's faster for me to use what the library provides than for me to type it out myself. So if it has it, this little cite button over here with the little quotation marks, everybody see that? Give me a thumbs up if you see that cite button with the quotation marks. I'm going to click on that, making sure, of course, that we change it from APA 7th edition to MLA 9th edition. Click. Okay. And this is completely correct. So I'll talk you through why it's correct, but it's completely correct. There's nothing that I need to actually change about the citation, which is glorious. So I'm going to save myself some work and I'm just going to copy this. Like I'm not going to do this from scratch because that's silly. Work smarter, not harder. You can either click copy to clipboard, you can click the copy button, or you can use that shortcut Command or Control C for copy. And then we're going to go over to the Word document. And again, we'll talk you through all of these different elements here. Notice that everybody can see the Word document now. Just got to check, make sure. Okay. As I pasted it in, it learned the formatting. You see how it learned that hanging indent right there? So we have the first line flush with the left margin, and then the second line, or in this case, even third line, is 1/2 inch indented. The way you set that up, highlight what you need to, go back into line paragraph spacing. Again, this is for desktop version. Go to line spacing options, and instead of going spacing, under indentation, there's this little special thingy thing. We'll click on that hanging indent. Mine's already selected. Yours will have displayed none, probably, or perhaps paragraph or first line. You just want to select hanging and make sure that it's 1/2 inch, 0.5, and then hit OK. Nothing should change because it was already set up with that hanging indent. Let's talk through the elements and then we can take a look at that second article just for comparison's sake. Anytime we have one author, we want to make sure we include the author's name. MLA doesn't care about degrees, titles, so pastor, doctor, MDiv, whatever the case may be. MLA says leave all that information off and just put the last name, first name, middle initial if they have it. If she had a middle initial, then after that, we would put it right there. She doesn't have one, so I'm going to get rid of it. We always put the order last name, comma, first name. And we put the last name here because the last name is going to be what we cite in our paper. We don't need her first name anywhere in the paper. All we need is her last name and the page number if it's available. And that's important. We always want to make sure that whatever is leftmost right here is what we name in the paper for our citation, because this is what your professor is looking at to compare. Camille.
I got a question. So
Yes, ma'am.
suppose that the persons that you're writing about and you're citing, right, have the same last name. Do you put both names then when you put it into the in-text, or how do you do that?
Yep. Essentially, yes. So whenever you're writing it, if it's in the sentence, so you would say Sylvia oh my gosh, why did I pick this name? Whatever her last name is, says blah, blah, blah. And you could probably put, it looks like it has page numbers, page 223 or whatever. And you would use her name like that. If you just said, if it's just in parentheses, so one author says S. Bashevkin says, no, not says, like that. So you would add their first name as an initial inside the parentheses. It's a great question. Anybody else have any questions at this point? Okay. So always the first thing that we're going to put, if it's available, is the author's name. And very specifically, the first piece of information is going to be the author's last name. So that's for any source that you have. The author's name is always going to go first for your citation, if there's an author available. The next thing you're going to put is the title of the individual piece. Now, sometimes it gets confusing because there are multiple titles. So you'll have the title of an individual article and then the title of like the journal, or you'll have the book chapter and then the book itself, the web page name and then the website name. MLA's rule is that the smaller individual item comes first and belongs in quotation marks. So this is one article inside a larger journal. So the article is inside quotation marks and it comes before the journal name. Journals, books, magazines, websites, etc. are all going to be italicized. So we have the smaller thing in quotation marks, and then
Bible
the larger
version.
container in italics. Christopher.
And Bible versions. The actual
Bible?
version of the Bible. Yeah, the version of the Bible that you're using should be in italics.
We'll talk about that. The Bible's set up almost completely differently, so we'll talk about the Bible separately at the bottom. I have the Bible down there at the bottom. So, like I said, for a scholarly peer-reviewed journal article, this is one article, so it goes in quotation marks. It's the name of the individual piece of paper that you're taking a look at. And then the journal is what contains that article. So there's going to be a whole bunch of articles inside this journal. Then we have publication information. Now, most scholarly journals have most of this information. Some don't have all of them. If it doesn't have that piece, you just skip it. So we have the volume. Whenever you put the volume number in, you're going to abbreviate it VOL, all lowercase, period, space, whatever the number is, and then a comma. These are all separated by commas. If there's an issue number, sometimes there's not, then you're going to put whatever the issue is, and instead of putting issue or an abbreviation for issue, you're going to put NO. Why? I don't know. It makes no sense, but NO is the abbreviation for issue. The reasoning is known only to the good Lord Almighty, and I will learn it upon the day of my death. So that's that. Volume and then the issue. If there is, if it's like spring issue, then you can just write the word spring all lowercase instead of NO. Date goes next. No, go away. Now for the date, you're going to put the information as detailed as possible. So if they have the day, then you'll put the day in. So 10 November 2025, and you're going to put it in the same order as you put the date, day, month, year. Even though we ceded from Britain, they like to use the British organization. APA does use the correct way, the American way. But for whatever reason, MLA again does day, month, year. If there's no date, day mentioned, then you just go month, year. If there is no month, then you just go to year. If it is longer than 4 letters, then you abbreviate it. So November, we abbreviate NOV. This is for the Works Cited page. If there's a page range, which usually there is for a scholarly peer-reviewed journal article, that's the next piece of information. PP period stands for pages, and then you put the page range here. You can either do it like this, or you can add that 2 back in so that it's 244. Either's fine. Either's acceptable. And again, that's the full range of publication information. If any of those elements is missing, you just skip it. You don't put no date. You don't put no volume. You just move on to the next one. The last 2 things that you're going to include are basically the location. Where did you find this piece of information? So this is the database. That's what we're using to find the information. Now, if you remember, I opened Academic Search Premier, which was basically like the search engine, and it found this article in EBSCOhost. A little bit confusing. Here's the thing. Once you get there and you hit the cite button, it's going to tell you which database it's in. Databases are large containers of information, so we italicize them. Then we put the link. This is how you get to the article. Now, when there are scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, we're going to use the DOI if it's available. Here's what a DOI is. It's essentially a living spot online for an article that's permanent. It's like a permalink, but it's for scholarly works, and the scholars of the world determined that they wanted to make sure that the knowledge was never lost. And so they said, okay, every time we publish one of these, we're going to give it a DOI so that it always has that link and it can never be lost. Otherwise, links can be changed. And so MLA says if there's a DOI available, it prefers for you to put the DOI link rather than the normal link. That's that. Yeah. Notice that I don't have an access date. If you would like to put an access date, MLA essentially says it is allowable but not required. I tell my students when I'm teaching writing classes that if you are going to put access dates for online sources, then I am expecting them for all of the online sources. So accessed date June 2026. And then I would put it on all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and practice using access dates, but MLA does not require them. But that's how you would do it if you are using access dates. Same thing with hyperlinks. MLA says that hyperlinks are not required. However, if you are going to use hyperlinks, then all of them must be hyperlinked. It's a consistency thing for that. Questions on a scholarly peer-reviewed journal article. Briefly, I'm going to go ahead and copy in that other one just so that I can show you what it looks like whenever there are more than one source. Not more than one source, more than one author. All right, so there were a whole bunch of authors. whole bunch. However, we have abbreviated it. This is the person's last name, comma, their first name. And then we have a comma and the phrase et al. Et is the word and in Latin, and all is an abbreviation for some Latin word that I have looked up in the past but have since deleted. And so I don't know what the all stands for, but all you need to know is that it means others, and those other people who are also authors of this paper. And so whenever you're writing this in your in-text citations, sing et al. is how you would write it. You're always going to put the period with the AL because remember, it's an abbreviation. It's not the full word. Et is a full word in Latin. It does not need a period. If you're going to write this in a sentence, you would say it like sing et al. Claim or say, because remember, this means and others. So sing and the others claim. We want to make sure that we have it plural tense. I'm actually going to hold off on books and I'm going to move to the web article because that sort of links in nicely because we're looking at all of these web sources here. So whenever we're looking at a website, the same general principles apply as with a scholarly peer-reviewed journal article. It's just a lot less information because it's less scholarly. So I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to go to the website. Let's do breakpoint and I'll click over here. I am aware that you cannot yet see my screen. No, nobody panic. Nobody panic. Well, that's not helpful. That's not helpful. Great. Perfect. Okay. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Cool beans. All right. So this is a web article. Somebody tell me from what you remember, what is going to be the very first thing that I put in my Works Cited page if it is available? Christopher.
Stone Street, comma, John.
Excellent. So this is going to be, we're including the authors because anytime we have authors available, that's going to be the very first thing that we include. And I'll show you in a second what that looks like. I can only share one thing at a time though. So I'm going to just talk you through it first and then we'll do it real quick. We'll put all the pieces together. Now, the next two pieces of information that we need are the titles of things. Does anybody remember after the authors, which title goes next? The title of the individual article or the title of the website as a whole? Yeah, 50-50. 50-50 shot.
The article.
Real. Excellent. The individual article. The inconvenience of inconvenient truth. And so that would be the next thing. And it's going to go inside quotation marks because it's the shorter thing. Again, you don't need to memorize this piece of information, but I found it to be helpful that MLA, short things, the individual things get the quotation marks, longer things get the italics. That's just helpful for me. It's a nice consistent rule for MLA. Now, this website is Breakpoint. This is not the website name. This is part of the link. So I'm not going to put breakpoint.org. I'm just going to put Breakpoint because that's the name of the website. Names of the website is not the same as an abbreviated link. I'll put the date next. And then the next thing that we would need is a publisher. Now, publisher information is at the bottom where you're looking at the copyright information. A lot of websites don't have a separate publisher or sponsor. So if there is not a publisher, you're just going to skip that piece of information. So we'll put the date and then the link. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the link and see how much of the information I can just remember. It's like a game. How good is Mariah's brain right now? Okay. So we have Stone Street, comma, John. Can you see me typing? Super duper. and Timothy D. Paget. Notice how I put the second author's name. If there are two authors, then we do put both of their names. The in-text citation would be Stone Street and Paget. You have to name them both. Then we have the title of the article. Truth. Break point. I don't remember the date. I lost the date. 6/5/2026. So it's going to be 5 June 2026. And then the link. Notice whenever I pasted the link that it changed it from an actual link to the text. To fix that, I could either two-finger tap and say, hey, undo, and instead of using the shortcut, I use the shortcut Control V for Victor, to paste it in. And I could instead, so let's say undo, so two-finger tap, and I could say, hey, just paste the text itself, and that worked. Or let's say it's too late, and then you hit this, and you're like, oh no, I pasted it in, it's too late. You can just hit the little drop down next to Control, paste options, and say, hey, I just want the text. If that still doesn't work for whatever reason, it's just being obnoxious, you can click on the link, two-finger tap, and hit Edit Hyperlink. And this is the address, so I can just copy the address and paste it over the text to display. And that'll change it as well. And that's what that looks like. So again, for an article, it's very similar to the scholarly peer-reviewed journal article with less information. So we have the author, title of the individual work, title of the larger work within which it's contained, which is the website, date of publication, and then the link. Pretty straightforward. The only thing that I need to cite in your in-text citation are the author's name or names. For most websites, there are no page numbers available. You don't have to put the paragraph number or anything like that. You can just put their names. Any questions on a website? Camille.
Why is the names one last name first, then first name last? Why is it like that? Does that matter?
Fantastic question. Just the way the MLA is. It's such a great question. I know. I do not know. So we definitely always want for the first one, the last name to be first because you're doing it alphabetically. But why is the second name reversed? Because the people at MLA decided that they wanted to have it just reading straight out through. Great question. Any other questions?
You just answered my other question because you said alphabetical order. I was going to ask that next, but thank you.
Perfect. Now, let's say that we have this source, but there are no authors. Let's just pretend that it's, that there are no authors. So I'm going to get rid of the author slot. If there are no authors named and there's not a group author, like a corporate author, like sometimes Britannica articles are like the editors of Britannica. If there's not a corporate author, then you just skip the author slot and instead you organize by the title of the article. And that's then what you would name inside your in-text citation. You have to include the article title. And you would put that inside quotation marks, inside your parentheses. And we could eliminate the. Or you could abbreviate it to just inconvenience. That would be appropriate because it's a noun. Whatever the first noun is. But you don't want to just do, let's say, truth and use that as your in-text citation, because otherwise your professor is going to be looking through your works cited page and they're looking for what word? They're looking for truth. So you want to make sure that you include at least the first closest couple of words so that they can link it up to your in-text citation. If this was going to be in the sentence, you could say something like the article, the inconvenience of an inconvenient truth, says blah, 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 whatever the article says. But then you don't need anything at the end because, again, there are no page numbers. And because there are no authors, there's nothing else to include. You've included in the sentence the information that you needed to link it to your Works Cited page. If there is a corporate author, like if this was Britannica, then you would put the editors of Britannica or whatever, and you would organize it by E for editors, whatever the corporate name is. You guys ready to move on to YouTube video? YouTube. All right, let me pull up a YouTube video. Let's see. Should I do? We'll do this.
Priscilla
I don't know.
You looking for a video?
I am. Yeah.
Priscilla Schreiner.
I happen to I there are two types of things that I want to show you, so I wanted to make sure that I had something. So I'm going to search for myself. Mariah Burkert.
While you're looking for that, I have a question, please.
Absolutely.
Recently, in an assignment in my bib course, we were told to put our responses in the MLA format. However, the responses were our personal take on a question that was given. So there's no author. It's not a scholarly article. Is that supposed to be cited?
Doesn't sound like it. Was this, you said this was for a discussion forum?
Well, no, I've had the discussion forum. That's another one I was going to ask you about because it's kind of iffy. I've been told before by a professor you don't have to use an MLA format in a discussion, and then there have been others who want you to use the MLA format. And then it's like if I'm answering from a personal experience, we've been told like, put it in MLA format. So if it is, I just think that maybe something has to be cited. How do I cite myself if I'm supposed to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So remember that for MLA, there are really three elements. You have the formatting, you have in-text citations, and you have your works cited page. So anytime you are working with sources, you should have the in-text citations and your works cited page. So even if it's a discussion forum, you should make sure that you're using those in-text citations, and at the end you have, works cited, and then your list of sources that you've used to give credit to the authors. So always want to make sure we're giving credit where credit's due. If it is just an assignment, like let's say it's a reflection paper, and you're just giving your own thoughts on like, this is how I felt like the week went, or these are my personal reflections on something. What they're asking for most likely is MLA formatting. So make sure you have the header, you have the heading, you have it double spaced, Times New Roman, 12-point font, etc. And that's what they're asking for, is that particular formatting, not for you to cite yourself, because that's not usual. Does that help to sort of clarify?
Yeah, it does. It does. Because once I see, okay, put in MLA format, I'm like, okay, am I supposed to be citing myself on that?
No, not necessarily.
Just use the format. Okay.
Exactly.
All
Yeah.
right.
And that's a good question.
With the discussion, I guess, is at the discretion of the professor.
Yes,
Or
most professors. So most professors don't necessarily want you to bother with trying to set up MLA formatting because you're pasting it into a web browser, and
Right.
MLA formatting doesn't translate well to a web browser.
Right.
However, if they ask you to, then just what I always recommend to people doing anyway is to type it up in the Word document and then just copy and paste it over. That helps prevent loss from your computer like glitching out on the discussion forum and you losing your entire discussion draft anyway. But regardless, like I said, even if your professor doesn't specifically say, hey, please make sure to cite your sources or whatever the case may be, we want to make sure that we are practicing citing sources, just because that's practicing good academic integrity. But most professors will explicitly say, hey, make sure that you, whatever they want you to do. And if you're ever not sure, you can always just check. Most professors, I don't think I've ever encountered a professor who hasn't been delighted that a student was asking questions like that. Like, hey, do you want me to set up a header and heading for my discussion forum, or do you just want me to cite my sources? Most of them are going to say, I just want you to cite your sources. You don't need to set up a header heading.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Now, for a YouTube video, YouTube videos are a little bit different because there are uploaders and then there are the people who are talking. Sometimes those are the same thing. So for me, on my personal YouTube platform, sometimes I upload videos of myself. And so in that case, I am the uploader and I am the speaker. Sometimes, though, I upload videos of other people where I am just the person who is putting the content on the website, but I am actually not the person who created the material. And so those are two different things, the creator and then the uploader. And so those are going to be two pieces of information that we're working with whenever we're doing our Works Cited page. And so I'm going to stop the share and reshare the Word document so that I can walk you through, again, just sort of briefly through those pieces of information here. Let me know if you can see my Word document. Word? Okay. So in this case, this is a video created by my friend Katie Caruso. And so I'm going to put Caruso, comma, Katie, because she is the one who created the content. Then we put the title of the article. It's not the article, the video. It's something from Mark 14, 1 through 31. Mark 14 through 31, period, quotation marks. Put the platform, because remember, that's the container of the information. So they have one video, the smaller thing, on the larger platform of YouTube, which contains the video. So YouTube is the thing that gets italicized. Then I put the uploader information. And sometimes the uploader information can be funny, like Russian Hacker 2 or something funny like that. Whatever it is what you put it. That's what you put. The date that it was published, which I do not remember, and so I need to take a look. 29th of April, 2026. 29 APR 2026. And the final thing that I need is the link. You'll notice that it's very similar to setting up the web article. Very similar in format. The only additional piece of information is the uploader. Right there. Now, if this video was not by Katie, let's say that it was me, I was uploading for my own content, then we would just eliminate the creator spot and you would only put the uploader information. And so then your in-text citation would be the video name instead of the creator. In this case, though, we do have a separate creator, and so we're going to leave Katie's name in there, and we would organize by Caruso. This applies for any video platform where you're pulling YouTube videos or something similar. Canvas videos are set up essentially the same way, except it would be Canvas instead of YouTube. And you may not know the uploader information. If you don't know the uploader information, then you just skip the slot. Any questions? The next thing we're going to do is a book. Christopher.
So basically, when we're doing MLA Works Cited, we give as much information as we can and leave the rest out.
Yep. APA is different. So if you're ever citing an APA asks you to like tell the reader if you've skipped something, like it'll have you put ND for end date for no date and things like that. But MLA just says if you don't have it, just skip it. So whenever we're doing books are actually easiest. The easiest things to cite. It's if it's a print book, because all you need is the author, the title, publisher, and the date. Just those 4 pieces of information. Super nice, super easy. What we're going to do is I just did a search, and I'm going to see if I can find a real book. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you book, and then we'll switch back over to the Word document. I'm going to show you one book and show you how to cite it as a print book and then again as an electronic source. Note that whenever you're doing electronic books, MLA says that an ebook is not the same as a book that you found online. So an ebook, they define as like if you have a Kindle device and you purchased it and you have it available on your Kindle, or if you are using a book that you got through Slingshot and it lives on your computer in Slingshot. So that's an ebook. Only you have access to that one book because you purchased it on that digital platform. This is an ebook living in the library, which is set up again slightly differently. So I'll talk you, like I said, I'll talk you through that. So we have this book right here, and just like normal, we are going to put the author's name first. So that's Miss Joanna Schoen, or whatever her name is. And so you would do Schoen, comma, Joanna. Title. Now we don't have 2 separate titles. We only have the title of the book. A book is a larger container that contains individual chapters. So book titles are always italicized. So that's going to be italicized. The next 2 pieces of information we would need are the only 2 pieces that we would need if it was print. So we're looking for the publisher, which is over here. So University of North Carolina Press, and then the publication date. So November 2nd, 2015. I'm going to stop the share, and we're going to put that information in our Word document. Let me know if you can see my screen. Doopity dooper. Author's name, portion after row, title of the article, University of North Carolina, comma, can't remember 2nd, November 2014. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So that's the information. If this was a print book, this is it. Boom. Bada bing, bada boom. We are done with that entry. So like I said, sometimes if you can familiarize yourself with the general rules of setting up the Works Cited page, you're going to end up being faster than if you go on some sort of Works Cited generator, and because you have to type all this information in anyway. And so you may as well just sort of know the general flow, and then you can just plug it in yourself, and then you're done. And you know it's right. Now, let's say that we want to cite it as an electronic resource because it is, in fact, an online book. We're going to put the same piece of information. Hold on, put it over here. Except we also need 2 additional pieces of information, the database and then the link, just like we needed to for the scholarly peer-reviewed journal article. Place where we found it and the link. So this is, I think, EBSCOhost. Let me check. ProQuest eBook Central. And then I'll copy the link. And that's how you do a book that is living online. If your book is Kindle, so paste this here and we'll say Kindle proper Kindle. Then before the publisher, you put edition information. Any type of edition information like editor, if there's a separate edition, whatever the case may be, that goes before the publisher. So maybe Kindle edition, and you would abbreviate edition ED. So Kindle Ed, University of North Carolina, etc. Or maybe Slingshot e-reader edition. Whatever the case may be, whatever version it is, that's where you would put that information, is before the publisher. Any questions on that?
I do.
Yes.
I have one question. It may not be exactly the same, but in some of the assignments, there's a video within the assignment. And so would it be cited the same way as an ebook, or would it be the same type of input?
For a video? So
That,
if you're citing like in Canvas,
yes.
so if you're citing the video in Canvas, and you're going to cite it as a video. So like up here where we did the YouTube video. So you would cite it like that. So if you have an author, so oftentimes the professor who's speaking, they're going to be the author of the video. So you would put that here, and then whatever the video is titled, the platform, which in your case would be Canvas. If you don't know who uploaded it, then you skip that slot. And then you go and you put the date that it was published. If you don't know the date, then you just skip it. And then you put the link to the page, to the lesson page from Canvas. And that's all you put.
Okay, that's what I was doing. I just want to make sure that I was doing it the right way.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, some of you may encounter this situation where you have a work in an anthology. These are very complicated. If you have something like, and I think, let's see. Let's go back here. So for those of you who are in, for example, FAS 100, anybody familiar with that book by Luke Bobo? Maybe a couple of us. Okay. That is actually it's not, the entire book isn't by Luke Bobo. Just, he's the one who pulled all of those resources together. And so, whenever you're citing it, and actually, let me see if I can pull that up so that it's more helpful. So Luke Bobo, whatever you do. That'll be more helpful and practical. Okay, so we have this book, and we are not in the library, so there is not a cite button, so we have to do it manually. What you're going to start with is the information for the individual chapter. Now, I don't know if I have access to the pages, so I may just need to make it up. And I'm just going to make it up. It'll be faster if I make it up. So let's say that I'm citing the chapter by Amy Sherman. I'm not going to start by citing Luke Bobo. I'm going to start by citing Amy Sherman because she's the one who authored the chapter that I'm actually working with. Then I'm going to put the chapter title that she wrote, and then I'm going to put the information for the book. So let me show you how that's done. So I'm going to stop share, reshare to the page. Told you there was going to be a lot of jumping back and forth. All right, so we have Sherman, Amy, because she's the one who wrote the chapter that I'm citing. I don't know what her chapter is titled, so I'll put Amy's awesome chapter. Then we're going to put the book. So whatever you do, and I'm just going to abbreviate it for the sake of time. Edited by Luke Bobo. And notice that it's in straight order. It's not last name, comma, first name. It's just edited by Luke Bobo. Then we put the publishing information, just like we normally would for a book. So this is, I seem to remember. Okay, so does this one have funny information for independently published? Okay, so there is no publisher. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to skip the publisher slot because there is no publisher. It was published April 12th, 2019. 12 April 2019. And then I need the page range. And again, I'm gonna make up the page range because I don't have time to figure out which chapter it is and to go hunting in the book that I don't have access to. So pages, PP period, let's say 23 to 96. That's a large chapter. How about 55? Perfect. If this was a print book, that would be the end. That's it. However, I got this online. So if I was citing from Amazon, because that's where I found it, then I would cite Amazon. And that's what I'm going to put. So Amazon. If you're ever citing something from Google Books, you would put Google Books because that's the place, that's the location that you found it. Pasting that in. I don't need that whole thing, so I'm going to do this. Notice that it italicized the link. That is not correct. I'm going to remove the italics from the link. And there we go. Now, last but not least, we have the Bible. If you have a print Bible, I'm actually going to talk about that one first. This is how you would set it up. The title of the Bible is italicized. Often it's something like the Holy Bible. It might be the New Jerusalem Bible or the ESV Study Bible or whatever. Fill in the blank, whatever the title of the Bible is, that's italicized. You put a period and then you put the version. Now, if you're using the print version, you do not italicize whatever the version is, New International Version, etc. in the Works Cited. However, you do italicize it inside your paper. So whenever you're citing the Bible, so James 1:2 says, count it all joy, whatever. English Standard. That's how you would set that up. You name book, chapter, verse, and then English Standard Version in italics. You don't put the Holy Bible. Why? Because it's the Bible. The Bible has special rules. You name the version and not the Bible. Every time you cite the Bible after that, you don't need to cite the version, just the first time. If you use multiple versions and you're switching back and forth, then you do need to cite the version every time. You can just abbreviate it to ESV, NIV, whatever, after the first mention. Save yourself some trouble, though. Just use one version, then you only have to cite the version once. If you're citing an online version, sorry, we didn't finish. So title, italicized, then the version, not italicized, but you do italicize it for your in-text citation, and then your publisher and your date, just like you do for any normal book. If you are citing it online, so I always use Bible Gateway. So online, there's often different pieces of information in different places. So you need to actually look at the actual website to see what information is displayed. So for Bible Gateway, International Version, NIV is the actual title of the Bible. There isn't a separate title. So the version becomes the title, which is why it's italicized. A little bit confusing, but there you go. So that aligns with your in-text citation then. You're going to just put New International Version. That's going to be italicized. This is the publisher. and the date of publication for New International Version, the one that's used on this website. Bible Gateway is the name of the website, and that's italicized because it's a large container of multiple versions. And then we put the link. And that's that. What questions do we have? Questions, concerns? Things that you were hoping that I would cover that I did not cover? All right. So I'm going to share my screen one more time to get to the web page. So what we covered today is we talked about the importance of using a citation style in general. We talked about academic integrity and being a good scholar. We talked about MLA setup a little bit, and then we talked through several different things. So books, websites, scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, and just being able to familiarize yourself with those general formats that you can not need to use a citation generator, and you can just type those things out. Again, most professors don't mind if you use a citation generator. It's just they're often wrong, and you're going to be faster in the long run if you can just start practicing typing them in, and then you can be an expert, and you can say, "Look, I can just do it. I can just do it manually," and it's great. Now, some additional sources that I will send your way. Al Purdue is my first thing that I always look at whenever I have a question about how to set up something for Works Cited. I always go to Al Purdue. They're fantastic. One of the most reliable sources. Second, the next thing that I check is OWL Excelsior, and they have a whole bunch of excellent resources with the Works Cited page and with in-text citations. They also have, you notice on the left here, additional subcategories, like if you're citing somebody's dissertation, or if you are citing a government resource, government publication. They have those more specific things listed on the side there. So if you're ever writing about like the Constitution, or you're citing a Supreme Court document, you can check a page like this to get some additional information. I will also send out this MLA checklist. It's a nice little just go-to for you to be able to make sure that as you're continuing to practice using MLA formatting, you're just saying, okay, do I have everything set up correctly? Nice little handy checklist for you. If you need additional support from the Ally Center, we are more than happy to provide support for you. And so you can access our page a few different ways. I like to get there through our research guide. Go to Academic Services. And then if you're looking for either scheduling an appointment or our upcoming workshops, you can visit the Ally Center page. And you can click here to schedule an appointment, or scroll down to see our upcoming workshops. Our next workshop is Revise with Relaxation, Edit with Ease with Professor Hannah Kahn. Sign up here. If you're looking for the list of our previous workshops, you can click on Introduction to Academic Reading and Writing. And over here on the, I have to move my Zoom out of the way again. There is no good living space. It's always in my way. You can click on Resource Videos. And then all of our previous workshops are there. PowerPoints that pop. I like that one. I'm doing PowerPoints again in the summer, though. I'm very excited. And I mentioned Dynamic Duo, the annotated bibliography, and the outline. That's the workshop that I will include in the email, along with the other resources that I mentioned and that Word document. Of course, if you need anything else from the Ally Center, please don't hesitate to reach out. Even if you just shoot me an email, I'm more than happy to chat and help you with anything related to writing or academics in general. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your evening.